Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and I'm just being me in a world that isn't. Next to me is the Amplid Souly Grail, a board I had a shit ton of fun on. Next to that is the Soulmate, a board that I found pretty chattery. And then the Singular, another fun all-mountain board. I'll be primarily talking about the Souly Grail, but I will occasionally reference the Soulmate and the Singular. A lot of S's in there. I rode this with Union Atlas, Ride Fuse, Burton Kendos, and Nidecker Rift lace boots. I got this in good groomers, some messy groomers, some decent powder, better powder, and some pretty good powder. Now when it comes to sizing, this 157 was just the right size. I wouldn't want to go bigger, wouldn't want to go smaller. When it comes to shape, this is tapered and directional, but it doesn't feel tapered and directional. It feels almost like it's non-tapered. This is mostly camber. There's only a touch of early rise before the nose and maybe a touch before the tail, but not that much. Same with the Singular. They have a similar camber profile. I'd say this is best for advanced to expert riders. This has a medium stiff flex, but it bends a good bit. And then there's great energy back from the board. It really pops. The nose isn't that soft and the tail isn't either. It feels like a pretty consistent flex throughout. Compare that to the much cheaper Soulmate. You got a much easier flex. If you're considering going less directional, you can see this has a flex very similar and that same kind of energy as the Souly Grail. It's okay on a butter, but it took a good bit of work in the nose and in the tail, and it doesn't seem to wash out when you're buttering as many boards with lifted sides in the nose do. Same with the Singular. The Soulmate was a lot easier, so if you like buttering, you might want to go that way, but you're going to lose a lot of dampness. The Souly Grail is just incredibly damp. This anti-phase technology is just no bullshit. This is legit. Like coming off the Burton Power Wagon, which is a medium stiff, damp, tapered, directional free ride board with a good flex personality that works in all conditions. And then I got on this, I was like, wow, I just have much more dampness with a similar flex. It just absorbs chatter from hard micro bumpy snow to wet, messy snow and everything in between. It is one of the best all-day rides I've ever had. Same with the Singular. I felt like it was very close. The Soulmate is just the polar opposite of these. This was a chattery mess the minute the conditions started to get uneven for me, and it didn't work very well. If you want to go fast, this board can point it. The side cut, even though it's a little bit on the turny side, still was fine with a straight line or two. It's better than most boards with this kind of shape and this kind of side cut. The base glide, it's good, but not amazing. It's maybe slightly above average. Keep it well waxed and you should be fine in all conditions. It's not an ice specialist. It doesn't have that crazy disruption in the side cut that grips and everything. But in firmer snow, this gripped fine. What I really liked is how quiet the edges are. They don't chatter, they don't bounce. It's very hard to buck the edge out of the radius of your turn like I did with the Soulmate. The Singular had that same cool feel. Now, when it comes to turn initiation, I felt like this was medium fast. And then when you got it on edge, there's all that camber, there's all that spring, and I love that. This is such a hard carving board. I had so much fun railing a turn on this. Overall turning experience, I would say, is balanced. Maybe a touch on the turny side. I could make any kind of turn I wanted to. I could drive through the front foot throughout the entire turn. I could turn this center weighted, or I could lean back into the tail on the way out of the turn and have a blast any way I turned it. Same with the Soulmate and same with the Singular. Amplid just does turning style agnostic perfectly, I think. So if you're somebody coming from a more non-tapered ride and you don't like that washy feel tapered boards can provide, this is a great solution for you. Now, when it comes to powder, with a 23-inch stance width set all the way back, you can get 4 inches back from center of board. And that's a pretty good setback, except for the stance width is super wide. There are only 5 inserts on the front and 6 inserts on the back. Usually there's 6x2 and 6x2. I rode at a 21.5-inch stance width, so I couldn't get the front foot as back as far as I'd like, but I like a very set back, very surfy feel in powder. It was definitely better than the Singular. I'd say the Soulmate felt a little more floaty, but not by much. But in comparison to a lot of other tapered directional peers from other brands, I didn't feel like this floated as well. If you're somebody who wants a more centered feel because maybe you get a lot of air or you're riding steeper terrain, this will be fine in powder and you'll really like it. The lifted sides of the nose rolled easier in powder in comparison to a lot of other boards that don't have that. And overall, other than maybe the not so easy float in powder for people like myself who really like that setback surfy feel, I think everything else about this board really tickled my taint. This just really shines when it comes to the turn, and it allows any kind of rider to turn this. And I think that's very special. On top of that, the dampness and the way this board can just handle any condition you want to ride very well, maybe except for just blocks of ice. This is an amazing board, and I think it's going to be a very recommendable ride for a lot of riders.